Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of DPAA Short Connects, where we go inside the homes, the hearts, the minds, the strategies and tactics of advertising's leaders. I've got with me today Miss Shannon Reed. Shannon is the SVP of L'Oreal Media, and I'm very excited to have her. Shannon's got a great career in the agency business, where I've got to know her some time ago. And as we all know, L'Oreal is the world's largest beauty company, a leader in makeup, cosmetics, hair care. And L'Oreal actually set itself the mission of offering women and men all around the world the best of cosmetics innovation, as I would say, or you would say, Shannon, in terms of quality, efficacy, and safety. So we have a smart and stylish company, therefore having its media run by a smart and stylish executive. In fact, my claim to style fame with Shenan was I introduced her to Prince Albert many years ago, the Prince of Monaco, and but you're clearly more stylish and a great executive. So please welcome today and tell us what's your role at L'Oreal and how long have you been here now?
Thanks for the intro, Barry. That was a lot of fun, and meeting Prince Albert was a highlight of my life for sure. Thank you for that as well. So my role at L'Oreal, as you said, is SVP of Media. So I oversee all of our media investments for the United States. That includes search, social, programmatic, display, television. If you can imagine that it runs in paid media, it runs through my hands ultimately. And I help oversee the agency relationship at Wavemaker as well. It's a truly tremendous opportunity for me. I've been, as you said, on the agency side for many, many years, and the opportunity to come to the client side and think about how we partner with our media partners, how we participate in a space, how we show up as a business, beauty for all of the things that you said about transparency and efficacy are really important to us as an organization and as a business. And I'm excited to be a part of the business and do my part in bringing those things to fruition through media.
Good for you. And I'm glad to hear you're working with Wavemaker. Louisa Wang is actually joining us for our member town hall in a couple of weeks, and another great leading executive in the world today, as the whole Group M group is. I've got to ask you, what, Shannon, is that photograph behind you? It looks pretty amazing.
She is pretty cool, isn't she? So she has hung in all of my offices that I've had since I ran Morpheus Media back in 2000. Well, I didn't have her in 2001, but since we launched, since I was Morpheus and then on to MEC and then on to Publicis. And I would probably have her in my office at L'Oreal. I just haven't gotten her there yet. So right now she's in my home office to kind of make it all feel like it's a bit connected. She is a piece by a photographer by the name of Ellen von Unworth. And Ellen is probably most famous, or at least to me, most famous for all of the black and white, amazing, iconic photography that she did for Guess in the 90s. And I kind of think of her as my alter ego. I
love it.
Rather love her.
Did she photograph Claudia Schiffer in those, or?
You know, she did. I think she did. Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. So you mentioned you got this on its way to your office. Tell me, are your teams working from home? Are you at home? Are you in your office? What's going on as of late?
So L'Oreal is open, our office at Hudson Yards. I think we're in a tremendous situation. That building is spectacular, as you know. It is really the epitome of safety and great standards. And the building and our office team has, I think, done a fantastic job in making sure that we have really great access to the building in safe and secure ways that make the team feel comfortable. So we are currently at 50% capacity. That means you're either a team A or a team B. I am a team A, so I am home this week, but would be in the office next week. And for the most part, I'd say we've got a good amount of people actually coming back to the office on a regular basis. We'll see how things go with New York City schools shutting down and how things progress with the virus over the course of the next few weeks. But right now it is nice to, well, don't tell my family this, but it's actually kind of nice to see humans other than them. And it's kind of nice to, as I'm onboarding into the business, get a chance to connect faces with names and people, even if it's under a mask.
It's amazing how many people have started jobs during this quarantine period, have never in person met people they're working with. It's incredible.
It's really incredible. Although I have to say, one of the advantages of that I think is fascinating, when you're on Zoom calls or you're on Teams calls, everybody has their name under, it's like wearing a name badge all day long. And for somebody who's starting in a business, that's actually really handy.
I agree. I thought about it. We've got to have more conferences like that. It's great having that. I agree. Hey, so you're working across all media, as you mentioned. What's the omni channel look like at L'Oreal now and going forward?
It's been a really interesting time for, I think, all advertisers, not just L'Oreal, as we've followed the consumer shift into digital. And if we look at eMarketer earlier this year, they stated that we were going to have 2 or 3 minutes of additional time spent with media. That was in January, February. When they restated that in April, they came back with 41 additional minutes spent daily with media. That's a huge jump, right? As we look at where that time is getting spent, it's getting spent in digital video, it's getting spent on social media. Every marketer, every advertiser had to take a minute and say, okay, how do we make sure that we're there? How do we make sure that we're following that consumer time and that we're actually meeting that customer, he, her, them, they, wherever they are, so that we can participate and be a part of the conversation. So omni-channel has really taken a shift heavily into digital this year, not surprised, and heavily into video this year, also not surprised, following consumer habits, which should always be our job.
Absolutely. That's great. And have you found that in addition to those changes, you've paused your media, you've gone heavier in spend, and what are you looking at for next year?
So we've shifted definitely heavily into digital and especially into video. We haven't paused spend anywhere, but we've tried to make sure that we're optimizing the mix. And I think what we've learned this year, I think what every advertiser has learned this year, is a need for flexibility. It's a need to make sure that we are nimble and opportunistic based on what's happening in the world. And whether it's a pandemic or a social cultural crisis, you need to be able to move quickly with your media dollars. And I think it's going to change a lot about how joint business partnerships are done, how media partnerships are done in the future. You heard, there was a lot of talk around, do we do the upfront early? Do we do the upfront later? When does that happen? It wasn't just us who was grappling with those questions. It was every member of the ANA and then some to figure out how they participated in that space. And although I think it's probably all worked itself out at this point, it does raise the question of how do we ensure as brands and as marketers that we can nimbly move to follow the customer.
I'm glad to hear you say that. In our business, programmatic digital out of home has been a great growth area, and largely, especially this year, because of its agility and nature to move schedules around to where audiences are, to move, and you mentioned video, to move to video screens where people are in front and certain places. So that's good to hear. And we'll talk about out of home in a moment. But before we get to that, I've got to imagine that e-commerce has become a larger part of your business this year as well. Could you talk to that and how do you see it moving forward, Shannon?
Sure. E-commerce has been a big piece of our mix and certainly a place that's growing. It, again, following consumer demand, right? So as she moves into that space because she doesn't want to walk into a store, because the hair salon is closed, because there isn't the opportunity to walk into a big retailer and try things on, we have to change how we are there for that customer. And that came with some really interesting things like a big push into virtual try-on. What is that opportunity to see that lipstick before you buy it, to try on that mascara look before you actually get it home, to think about what color that hair color is going to look like on your hair before you take the steps of trying to apply it yourself at home. With that also came a huge focus on our customer care center and making sure that we were there to support those customer needs and answer questions. If you don't have somebody at the counter to ask, or you don't want to linger in a store to ask those questions, you want to be able to pick up the phone and make a choice. And let's be honest, she doesn't want to make the wrong choice in the store. She wants to be able to make sure that when she gets it home, it's the thing she wanted. Even if return cancellation policies are very generous, you still don't want to have to send it back. So making sure that she can make a confident choice before she gets it home and that she's going to love the product when she gets it has been a really great focus for us.
Very smart. Once again, you're following the consumers online, in store, and every place they go. Good for you. That makes perfect sense. Digital out of home. So we've been growing the industry. Of course, this year was a little bit challenging, but we anticipated coming back strong, as it's been double-digit strong coming into this year. What's been your experience with digital out of home, and what would you advise our media owners in terms of guidance?
It's a space I'm so excited about. And I've been on the phone with some of your members already asking certain questions about where things are going and what is the footfall traffic that's happening in the spaces where they have units. How can we overlap to help support our hair salons as salons start to open again? How can I make sure that I'm in places that'll help drive traffic and help support our salons and our stylists? And then how do I help support, obviously, my consumer goods as well? I think the opportunities there are tremendous. I'm actually super curious from your members to know a bit more about the engagement rates with what they're seeing in this space. There is something about, even when I walk into New York City, you know, I'm back in the office, right? When I walk into New York City and I see these units available to me, I see them more today than I probably did before, because there's just less distraction and there's less people in the way. And I wonder if we're having a bigger impact with the footfall that's there than we were maybe even having before. So I'm super curious to see some of that. The digital programmatic piece of it is, I think, a tremendous advantage for us. The opportunity to be able to pick and choose those places and moments, the opportunity to really be creative with the message that we're putting in that place at that time, I think are really great growth opportunities for us.
Yeah, the dynamic nature of programmatic out of home to serve audiences where they are by temperature, time, creative, by what came off the runway in Paris yesterday is all now accessible. So I'm hearing three things. If I would take away three elements from you, guidance from Shannon Reed. One is be nimble and opportunistic. That's very key, and that won't go away given the year. Follow the consumer, and then have the opportunity and wherewithal to move quickly if needed. So those are the three Barry takeaways based on Shannon Reed's philosophy and experience, which is great. Shannon, when we do these, we always like to end up trying to understand a little bit more of a personal note. Challenging year on so many ways. What has inspired you during this year on say, a personal basis?
Sure. I think there's a couple of things that have inspired me. One, my son is applying to colleges. So watching him go through the process remotely to learn about these schools, engage with them, try and understand who he wants to apply to and why, and the process of writing the essays, and I'm sure every parent who's been through the process of helping a kid apply to college knows exactly what I'm talking about. There's something quite inspirational about seeing your kid grow up, and I think in this moment, seeing your kid grow up under these conditions and in this moment is quite inspiring. The other thing that's been very inspiring to me is a book that was written by a friend of mine. Michael Ventura wrote a book called Applied Empathy. And if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. I did it as an audiobook as I was driving in and out of Manhattan to work for the past couple of months. And he just tells some really great stories about the importance and value and scale that something like empathy can bring to your product marketing, but also to your personal life. And it's been a bit of a game changer.
Well, that's great. Shannon, thank you so much. SVP, Head of Media, L'Oreal, stylish, effective, strong executive, and empathetic. Thank you so much, Shannon.
Thank you, Barry.